The time is 1:30 p.m., and I hereby call the July 14th meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Before we begin, I have a few announcements. The Area Board of Zoning Appeal meeting is being held in person and virtually in the fourth floor council chambers of the County City Building with Zoom video and phone teleconferencing options available via links and phone information posted on our website, sjcindiana.com/abza. In case anyone needs the phone information, our call-in number is 312-626-6799. The meeting ID is 961-6443-3903, and the password is 543186. Due to issues with usage of video by persons viewing meetings, the county's determined that it is appropriate to require during virtually and partially virtual meetings that members of the public viewing meetings keep their microphones and cameras turned off. The host of the meeting will turn the members of the public's microphones and cameras off. During portions of the meeting where public participation is permitted, the participating members of the public will have their microphone and camera, if any, turned on. If a member wishes to participate in this portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat function. When on the phone, please use *9 to use the raise hand feature to be called on, and you can use *6 to unmute. To use the raise hand feature on Zoom video, click the controls at the bottom of your screen. If you happen to have two computer video window screens open and have a phone live active with a video window open at the same time, you're going to create an echo effect that will make hearing you impossible. Please choose one option or the other. In consultation with the St. Joseph County Department of Health, the following protocols will be in place for all meetings held in the council chambers. Number 1 is not applicable anymore. Face coverings are not required, correct?
They are not required.
Okay. Number 2, regarding public comment. We will first ask for any public comment from those sitting in the chambers and then in the auxiliary seating in the building. Once those in person have provided their comment, those calling in to the meeting remotely will be given the opportunity to provide public comment. Those wishing to provide public comment in person should line up next to the footprint stickers on the floor leading up to the podium. Hand sanitizer has been placed next to the podium. We ask that you sanitize your hands after you leave the podium area. Sign-in sheets for public comment have been removed to prevent anyone from touching the same pen. For this reason, please clearly state your name and address. Please do not be surprised if you are asked to spell your name for the record. Your speaking time will not start until after this is completed. We appreciate your compliance with these guidelines as your patience as we navigate these times. Due to wearing face coverings and for the benefit of people listening on the phone, we ask that board members state their name when making a motion and a second. Lastly, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting and other participants in this meeting. Sam, may we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Deutscher?
Present.
Mr. Hawley?
Present.
Mr. Moffett?
Present.
Mr. Ritzema?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Tavernier?
Here.
Mr. Velleman?
Here. Mr. Tavernier?
I just say I need to recuse myself from item number 1.
Correct.
So is that good?
So now you get up and walk out into the
Okay.
hallway until this
Mr. Tavernier is recusing himself from petition number 1. If you are in person for the meeting and you are the petitioner, as Sam is reading your petition, if you want to make your way up to the podium, if you have additional comments that you'd like to add to your petition, that'll be in the record. Sam, can we have the reading of petition number 1, please?
The petition of Barbara J. and Leslie A. Frank seeking the following variance from section 154.070CA1 to allow an accessory structure with a height of 22 feet where a maximum height of 19 feet is allowed for a proposed garage. Property located at 52245 Forest Brook Avenue, Clay Township, Zoned R, Single Family District, County.
Is the petitioner here?
Could we provide the staff report?
Yep. Staff?
If I could just click on.
The next one? There we go.
On the PowerPoint screen, you'll see that the yellow outline parcel shows a home that's there that has since been demolished, so it's no longer there. The home just to the north of that is where the owner of this parcel is located. And you can see that's where their home is with the red roof right there. And then you see on the right side of the screen is where there's an RV parked along the side of the road. And then the green space on the left side of the screen is the currently vacant lot where this new pole barn structure is proposed to be built. The location of the RV that's there along the side of the road does not meet our current zoning ordinance, which requires that an RV be parked kind of from the front line of the house back or covered, concealed by having vegetation kind of covering it up. So it's not compliant right now, so they're seeking to make that compliant by building a pole barn accessory building in the middle of where the screen is right here. You can see there's a kind of a gray utility enclosed trailer that's parked on the property right now. That's where one of the two bays that they're proposing will be built for, and the other one is for the RV parked on the other side. And then just on the left side of the screen with that light green house would be the neighboring house next to this property parcel. And so the proposed structure would be 2 stories in comparison to this single-family home, which is only 1 story. And so here's a picture of what the proposed pole barn would look like. You can see that if it were a full Class A RV, the maximum height it could possibly be would fit in that left side door, with the right side door being capable of storing that utility trailer. And then the pitch of the roof in order to accommodate a 2-bay structure does necessitate it being put up that high. When the ordinance was written, it was with the idea that if you had 1 bay, that the pitch of the roof would be able to accommodate a 19-foot high accessory structure. And so the 2-bay is what's making the roof structure fit to higher than what the written standard allows. And there's additional site plan information in the packet and presented here. It's the staff recommendation that there's nothing unique about this property that would not allow it to be built to the standard as written, and that having such a large pole building would detract from the residential character of that area with the size of residential structures in that area, and that it would make a very commercial-looking sized accessory building. And so the staff is recommending against due to that reason.
And just for clarification, this is a height request only, no, they're meeting all other setbacks required for that spot.
Correct, this is just for height.
Ryan, do you know how far back their proposed, the face of that building would be from the road approximately?
I don't have an exact distance, but they do have on a site plan that they purport to be to scale. It's, I want to say, probably over 50 feet.
I'm just trying to get an idea how that's going to sit next to that little green house.
Yeah.
You don't know how deep the lot is, do you, the actual lot itself?
The lot's 132 feet deep.
Deep?
And the scale drawing does show that the house, here, I'll flip over to this. You see on the screen here, the left side with the dark shading.
Right,
The very edge of the left is where the small greenhouse would be.
right.
And so what this pole building is meant to be would be a little bit closer to the road than that, but not by a ton.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am, can we have your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Barbara Frank. My address is 52241 Forest Brook Avenue, and I also own the property of 52245 Forest Brook Avenue.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add with the staff comments were?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything you'd like to add to the staff comments for your petition?
Yes, I did suggest if we can't do the 410 pitch, My builder, Pacemaker Builders, suggested we could go down to a 312 pitch for the roof, and that would bring the size of the overall height to 20 feet 9 inches. I also reached out to him concerning what this gentleman had indicated, saying that the 19-foot variance would accommodate a 14-foot garage door for an RV, and he said you would still need a 14 or 16-foot wall height in order to maintain that 14-foot doorway. And he said you would also need a 412 or a 312 pitch as well for the oversized peak of the building.
Looking at the structure, is there a reason that it has to be double wide? Could you do the trailers in just one of them and shrink it down that way so it doesn't have to be so high, or is that?
Right now, we have what you don't see on the pictures or at my home. I have 2 campers. And we have the 2 campers, and we also have the enclosed trailer, and we need enough space to move around for both of those.
Okay. How big's the biggest camper?
They're both 33 feet long from tongue to tail.
Any questions from the board?
Do you happen to know, again, where that garage, the face of the garage would be relationship to the house next door, the little green house? Is it about equal to, or is it in front of?
The current plan is just in front of it. It's about 35 feet from the road, which matches where my original house sits back off of the road itself. We planned it out to put the privacy fence up to it that's coordinated to my original home to close it off, so we thought it would be beneficial to keep it at the same face front from the road. We are not opposed, however, to set it back if required.
Thank you.
I just would like to note, the ordinance will require 35 feet from the property line, not 35 feet from the road or the center line.
Right.
And I believe that's what I meant. It's from, I know I have an additional, I was here a few years ago putting a porch on the front of my house, and there was a variance that I had to request at that time for the same reason. Where my house sits is exactly where it should be based on the variance or ordinance originally, without the front of the porch.
So this new building you're putting up is gonna pretty much match where your house faces onto Forest Brook, is that correct?
That's correct. But at the original building structure, not with the additional porch on it, so
Right,
it'll
correct.
actually be set back 10 feet. Okay.
That makes sense, I understand.
Now, I do want to note that where my house sits, it's on a higher grade than where this property is. And I know that our request is the 22 feet, but when I talked to my builder, the way it will be constructed, the peak should not be much higher than my house now currently is.
Is that little greenhouse occupied?
It's a rental unit, and it is occupied currently.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your time. With that, the public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition, please come forward or raise your hand. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to?
We had a, yeah,
Oh,
we
I'm
got a
sorry.
hand.
We have a hand.
Hello. Sorry, this was in opposition to, so I don't know if I was too quick.
I was getting to that one right next, so go right ahead, ma'am. You got your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Cherie Holloway, 52220 Hellman Avenue. So we're the property that's right behind the empty lot, the gray house. And I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Darlene Holloway, who owns that property. She's having some issues with Zoom, so is asking me to speak on her behalf. Her concerns with the structure is just that it's too large for the neighborhood. It's essentially looks like it seems like a commercial structure in a residential neighborhood. And she has some concerns about what that will mean for her own property value and if it will decrease her property value.
So you're asking if it's gonna have a commercial use at all? Is that what your remonstrance is? And the size of the structure, correct?
The size of the structure, and if it'll have a negative impact on the property values because it's such a large structure in a residential neighborhood.
Okay, very good. Would you have anything else to add?
She's also concerned about the view because our back porch would look right out, and is concerned about having such a large structure there.
Okay,
And that's it.
thank you very much for your input, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to, or please raise your hand. Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. I did have some additional questions. Mrs. Frank, could you come back up real quick? I did have a question about some things that I forgot to ask. I'm sorry. I'm assuming that the structure will have electricity to it. Will it also have water and gas and all utilities to it?
There will be electricity to it. Eventually, I want to put some automatic garage doors open into it. At this time, I do not plan on putting any gas to it or water.
There'll be no bathrooms in it or anything like that
No.
to make it habitable?
No.
Okay, that's right. And all the vehicles that you own that you will be placing in the structure are your personal property, not a business property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, they're for your own personal recreational use?
Absolutely.
There's no gonna be Chemlon trucks or anything like that in there?
No.
Okay,
I'm a control of a printing company, so I don't plan on putting any presses in there or anything other than personal use.
okay.
Are you planning on putting in a driveway to the, or are you just going to pull those in over the grass? Excuse me.
I think at this time, I'm just gonna go over the grass. If I do plan on doing a driveway, I may just do the crushed concrete to that site rather than something, no asphalt or any concrete.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, appreciate your input.
Sure.
All right, any additional questions from the board or comments? Or I would entertain a motion on the height variance to 22 feet at this time.
I got a question.
Yes, sir?
Is there a need for a 14-foot door? Most stuff I know fits in 12-foot.
We can bring her back up and ask.
Is there an actual need for it?
Ms. Brink, could you come back up one more time, please? Thank you. You should have asked when she was standing there.
Well, I was just thinking about it. I was sitting there looking at the diagram.
So I guess, is a 14-foot door required, or could you get away with a 12-foot door, is what Mr. Schaefer's asking?
14-foot is required, as it was pointed out in an email from the planning commissioner, I think it is. Most Class A's need at least 14 feet for clearance for everything that's an additional on there. I may just have a camper right now, but it is over 12 feet with the included AC unit and antenna. So I do plan on upgrading eventually, and I'd like to plan for that as well.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Appreciate it. I swore I wouldn't have to make you get up again. Any other questions from the board, or we'll entertain a motion?
They need 4 votes.
I did not mention that. So, I will. We missed it for this petition, but I did forget to mention that this is a 7-member board, so you would need 4 votes either way to have a petition voted upon legally, I guess, for that term. Thank you, Mr. Holly. And all 7 members are in participation today. Well, 6 for this one, I'm sorry. So she also mentioned 20 feet 9 inches. We could accept we could vary it a little bit if something was lower was acceptable to people. There's options.
Well, I don't think there's that much difference in that.
I see a lot of hesitation, so,
Well, it's partly due to the neighborhood.
correct. I have people that I know live in that vicinity, off somewhere near Francis, someone else over off Hellman, that have structures at least that size as well too. So it's not the same street, you're correct, but in that vicinity there are.
I would make a motion, but can I put in the motion, I'm not comfortable with that building being at the same distance from the house next door, the little greenhouse. And she did mention, I think, I'm not, that you would be willing to maybe move it back a little bit further. I just don't like it sitting right next door, right to the same front porch of the house next door.
So how can we structure that then?
It's a 48-foot building, and
You want to come up here again?
Well, I'm looking at our legal counsel to see how we can structure, can we put a condition on there that it has to be the
I
same?
need to know what the numbers are gonna be before I can tell you.
Okay,
it's a 30 by 48, so it's 48 feet deep, the building itself.
so we need to know what the little green house is to stipulate that it's a 40, 45, 50
If it
foot
would be
setback.
5 foot back from there, I have no, I'm comfortable with that, but
I don't know that we have that information in front of us, unfortunately. I can't interpolate from this.
So your concern is you don't want it too close to the greenhouse, or you don't want it too much closer to the road than the greenhouse?
Correct.
That's
Equal
right.
distance
I don't
off the
want-
road.
Yeah, I would like to see it maybe just from the front of the greenhouse, maybe 5 foot back, okay? Just so that when they come out their door, they're not looking right at a big, tall building.
And is that something that you can physically, like, there's enough room on the lot to do that?
I believe so. I thought that the lot size itself was 127 feet, based on what I found online. I never physically measured it out, but I think that's sufficient when the building's only 48 feet deep. And we're only going to use the front two garage doors. There's no exit going out the back side, so I could go back as far as I need to.
Okay, so the way you would do that would be a motion to approve the petition subject to the condition that it be built at least 5 feet farther back than the greenhouse to the, is that the west?
The structure, yeah, to the structure to the
That's to the
That-
south.
south, actually.
Okay,
Just
So
for
that
the-
house has a front porch on it. Are you in?
5 feet farther from the road
Okay.
than the house to the south.
Johnny has it.
What's that?
Just consideration, though, the person who was in opposition did say they live behind it.
Yeah, that
So
was-
if you're gonna push it closer to them.
Right, that was gonna be my concern,
kinda
Bob.
Not listening to their
Yeah.
point.
If you can see in this picture, there is a lot of foliage and trees that are grown between the two properties. There's actually a alley between the two properties. The privacy fence you see all the way to the back end of that picture is their privacy fence.
So if we push it back further, then the people that didn't really want the structure anyway, it's closer to them. I get where you're coming from.
But the view's the same.
The view is the same.
Yeah.
Correct. It's just closer to them.
Makes it that much closer.
It's just closer to
Yeah.
them, right.
Yeah, and look at that picture there. I mean, I don't know where you see the house behind it.
That was one of the original tiny houses, so, yeah.
And then just want to note that the ordinance requires an 8-foot rear yard setback.
Could
So they'd more than cover that.
Abby, does the ordinance
said
require
8 foot?
landscaping to kind of help buffer?
No, it wouldn't, but that could be a condition of approval.
I guess for the board, that might help, maybe.
You say 8 or 80?
8,
8. Oh, so we can move that house way back, or the structure way back then.
right, but I thought I heard someone proposed 5 feet.
5 feet back further than the
From the
little
house.
greenhouse to the south of the lot.
Mr. Hawley wants it
From the road.
5
From the
feet
road.
farther from the
5 feet
road
further
than
back from the
front of
frontage, pushed back in the lot.
Not that I want to unnecessarily hold folks up, but the only way to verify that it would meet the, requirements of the ordinance would be to get a revised site plan with dimensions showing what the setbacks were from the rear, from the front. And that might be the way to go.
That's a good thought.
I agree, Abby.
Do you still have the original, one of the pictures that I shaded in for the original building?
Yes, I have.
So if I move the front of that building to where the original house was sitting, would that be sufficient for what you're looking for?
I would like to see it back here, so that's just my.
I think everybody gets it. I think trying to figure out how to make that work is the dilemma. Christine, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just agreed with Abby. I would prefer to see a revised site plan.
Well, you
And
can
maybe,
always-
as Donnie said, I think you said, Donnie, some foliage in the back, some landscaping to sort of create a barrier.
So, with
I
the
mean,
way
you have the option to table it
right,
for
that's what I'm
more
looking at is, so
information.
right now, Mrs. Frank, the way the board is leaning, it would be helpful for us to have a true site plan of what Mr. Holly has asked for, of having that moved back to be 5 foot behind the little green house to see what that looks like on the lot. And then I think also the board, if there was some additional foliage possibly behind it. We understand there already is some, but it'd be helpful to have that as well too. We'd like to table this till next month to see that site plan.
Okay, very good.
And we
But I
can
don't
work
need a
with you
motion
on
for
on what we would need for the
We don't
site
need a
plan.
motion, we're just tabling.
Okay, that sounds
gonna
good,
need a
thank you.
motion.
Do I just call you then?
The staff will get with you after this
All right.
meeting again. I need a motion to table this until next month.
I would like to make a motion that we table 52-245 Forest Brook to the August meeting.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Oh, yes, we
Anybody
do.
want to get,
Yeah, unfortunately, guys, you got Christine up there on the Zoom meeting. It had to be a roll call vote.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry, everyone.
sorry, Christine. Sam, can you call for the vote, please?
Mr. Schaefer,
You got to vote because Christine's not here. So you got to vote. She just called your name.
say,
Yes. What?
say yes.
Say yes.
Yes, to table.
I'm sitting there listening to you carry on.
That counts as a yes.
What?
He voted yes.
He voted yes.
I voted yes.
Mr. Ritzema,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher,
Yes.
Mr. Vellman.
Yes. This will be tabled until the August what?
10?
August
11.
11th meeting of the Urban Board of Zoning Appeal. Would someone be so kind to grab Mr. DJ, please? Ma'am, we'll see you next month. The staff will be in touch with you about what we're looking for and all that. Thank you for your time.
I'm gonna drive out.
Hey, Sam, this is Christine. Can I just make a comment? I can't hear Donnie very well. Donnie, do you have a microphone in front of you?
He does not.
Pull Jim's over when you need it.
Good.
I'll switch them around in a little bit.
We can
Okay,
slide-
just because other Zoom people are probably having the same problem.
Yep.
Thanks.
There's one open, I guess, down there.
There's one open. We can slide all these down.
You could just slide down, or we can move it over.
Yeah, just slide that over.
Everyone pass one down.
They got long cords.
I'm gonna make one comment to the staff, is to find out truly what the clearance is on a Class A.
Okay.
I don't see many going down the road that are taller than semis. Most semi-height is no more than 13.
I did do research on that, and it's the exception, not the rule, but it had stated that it could get up that high to 14.
Has been tabled and you can't talk about it anymore.
We have the reading of petition number 2, please, Sam.
The petition of Lawrence A. and Connie L. Panarello seeking the following variances. One, from section 154.092A to allow a lot area of 1.3 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for lot 2 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Property located at 27480 Inwood Road, Warren Township, zoned A, Agricultural District, County.
Staff.
Yeah, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So agenda item 2 and 3 are adjacent parcels on Inwood Road. All they're proposing to do is through a subdivision to relocate the shared property line. Basically, the property to the west of 27480 Inwood Road would like to acquire ownership of the pond area to the south of the parcel we're currently discussing. As the parcels are both zoned agricultural, once they go through the subdivision, they're not going to meet the 20-acre lot minimum standard. So therefore, to complete this subdivision, the variances would be required. In this case, staff does support approval of the variance. These are both residentially used parcels with existing homes on them. Therefore, it's not creating any additional parcels in the agricultural district, no potential for further residential growth, and it's not taking any acreage out of production. As it is now, they don't meet the 20-acre minimum, and after the subdivision, they still won't meet the 20-acre minimum. So as such, when we look at the state criteria, we find that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. Because again, all we're doing is shifting the property line between two existing residentially used parcels. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in any substantially adverse manner, as the parcels will continue to be used residentially as before, and the only lot line that's actually being adjusted is the shared one between the two properties that are a party to the subdivision. Furthermore, strict application of the terms of this chapter would prohibit a desired property exchange between neighbors that really has no adverse impact on any public interests.
Very good. Any questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Chris Marbach, Surveying and Mapping LLC, formerly known as Marbach Palm, 8888 East US Highway 20, New Carlisle, Indiana. If I may, I'd like to talk to both of these two petitions at the same time, number 2 and number 3. As he just mentioned, they're tied together intricately.
There'll be separate votes.
Separate
but we
votes,
can
but
talk about them
I'll only
together.
talk once
Right.
for
And I
both
would
of those.
recommend separate public hearings for the two of them, just so the people
Correct.
commenting don't get confused.
Yep,
Perfectly fine.
that's fine.
Thank you.
So with me, I have Connie and Lawrence are here today. They have 27480 Inwood Drive, and their next door neighbors, Jeff and Tanya Proud, are 27522 Inwood Drive, and Tanya is here with us today as well. They are next door neighbors, and they're at the intersection, just west of the intersection of Crumstown Highway and Inwood Road. And if you look at that aerial map there, you'll notice that there are quite a few parcels in that general vicinity that are under the 20 acres, that they've been built up over the years prior to the current zoning ordinance, some of those. And this is just a residential little neighborhood kind of huddled around that intersection. Connie and Larry had some medical issues, and they feel they can't maintain their entire 3 acres on the parcel that's highlighted in yellow at this moment. So the back half of that piece is a nice, well-manicured pond that they don't want to see to be deteriorated because they can't maintain it anymore. So they approached the Prouds next door to see if they'd be interested in buying that piece from them and creating their parcel larger and downsizing for Connie and Lawrence. So the Prouds said, yes, we'd like to do that and help the neighbors out and buy that property and add a pond to our piece. So that being said, the current zoning ordinance requires the 2-lot minor subdivision and this variance application because of the 20 acres. We are basically just swapping a lot line between 2 residential homes. We are not making any more buildable parcels, and we are not taking away any more agricultural ground. As the staff mentioned, I would hope that you would approve their recommendation as well.
Very good. Any question for the petitioner? Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Marr.
you.
The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition?
For which property?
This would be for petition number 27480 Inwood Road. Yes,
Good
sir.
afternoon. My name is Lawrence Panarello, and I want to thank the board for considering our variance today. I have my wife who's going to share some things more specifically regarding the health condition.
Very good. Yes, ma'am.
Connie Panarello, 27480 Inwood Road, North Liberty. We have owned this property since 2009. We have loved it. We have enjoyed every inch of it, and we have cared for it. However, in late 2017, Larry suffered 2 strokes, and he has a deficit in his right foot. So we had endeavored to keep our property because we love sitting by the pond, having guests out. but it has become a very treacherous area where he has a deficit in his left foot. We did have a gentleman, a friend, who lived with us for a number of years, and he was right there when my husband had a stroke, but he did, in July of last year, move to Florida to live near his brother, who also needed some help. So we were alone at that point, and Larry did have an incident where he had on waders, and he was just going to go by the edge and do some things, but he lost his footing. Air filled up in the waders, and he had feet up in the air. So it was quite a dangerous situation. At that point, we realized we cannot do this. Mentioning it to our neighbors, Jeff and Tanya Proud, they considered it and let us know that they would be interested in acquiring that area of our property. So we began with, they contacted Marbach and Palm and New Carlisle, and here we are. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Appreciate your input. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition?
Hi. My name is Catherine Young, and I live at 59015 Crumstown Highway. We're on the corner of Crumstown and Inwood, and Connie and Larry are our neighbors at the end of our property. We've been very blessed to have them as our neighbors. We have no negative feelings, cannot see any impact that would be negative to the neighborhood or to our lot. We have less than 2 acres, which of course doesn't meet the 20. Most of the homes that are along the fronting of Crumstown and across the street fit the sizes that Connie and Larry's will end up being. And I just wanted to be here to support them. We have no negative feelings about this at all. We've talked to a number of neighbors, and we haven't heard anyone who had any objections to it.
Very good. Thank you for your input. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? I don't see any hands. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to, please come forward or raise your hand, please. Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments, questions, or I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make, excuse me, I'll make a motion to approve the request for 27480 Inwood Road.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Sam, would you call for the vote, please?
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Velleman?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds the variance granted and will issue it in findings of the facts. Thank you, folks, for that one. Stay tuned, you're up next. Can we have the reading of petition number 3, please, Sam?
The petition of Jeffrey Proud and Tanya Proud seeking the following variance from section 154.092A to allow a lot area of 6.3 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for Lot 1 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Property located at 27522 Inwood Road, Warren Township, Zoned A, Agricultural District, County.
Sean?
I don't have anything really further to add on this. Staff supports the variance in this case for the reasons stated for the second agenda item. It's just going to allow them to alter the lot line between the 2 existing parcels, not creating any additional buildable parcels in the agricultural district, not taking any acreage out of production potentially. So staff recommends approval of the variance.
As Mr. Marbach indicated earlier, he would have the same statement for this property as he did the previous petition as well, too. So with that, the public portion for petition number 3, 27522 Inwood Road is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Any, you guys forgot?
And if you spoke on the previous one but want your comments to apply, you can just come up and say, my name, my address, and I'd like my comment from
And
the previous
ditto.
petition.
Mr. Marbach?
Chris Marbach, Surveying and Mapping LLC, formerly Marbach Palm, 8888 East US Highway 20, New Carlisle. Everything I said for petition number 2, I'd like to put for the record for petition number 3, please.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about? Yes, ma'am.
Name's Catherine Young, 59015 Crumstown Highway, North Liberty, Indiana. We're 2 properties down from the Prouds, and again, we don't feel that this would be a detriment to the area at all, and we support.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to, please come forward or raise your hand. Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments, questions from the board, or I will entertain a motion?
Donnie Ritzma, I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please, Sam?
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Bellman?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds the variance granted and will issue it in finding the facts. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. All right. Sam, can we have the reading of petition number 4, please?
The petition of Jason Lee Goodsell seeking the following variance from section 154.515C to allow a side setback of 10 feet where a minimum of 30 feet is required for a ground-mounted solar energy system. Property located at 26511 New Road, Green Township, Zoned A, Agricultural District, County.
Staff? Yes, sir, Ryan.
Okay, this is an additional, this area is also in the agricultural district. You do have another example where the lot size is residential in size rather than the 20 acres or more. The zoning ordinance side yard setback for agricultural district is 30 feet, and it's designed so that if the neighboring property has tilled soil, that any stones that might be hit by farm equipment or dust or, manure or anything that's spread might not hit a adjoining structure. So 30-foot setback is appropriate if the neighboring property is tilled. In this case, it is not. It is a residential-sized neighboring property. The property just to the left on the screen also has another single-family home. In this case, staff is supportive of the requested variance due to the size of the lot being so much smaller than the standard 20-acre regular minimum requirement. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board for staff? Good, all right. Yes, sir. Are you the petitioner?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I'm the property owner. You can see there's a
You
driveway.
need your
on-
name and address
I'm
for the
sorry,
director, please.
Jason Lee Goodsell, 26511 New Road.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, so there's a easement drive on the very left side of the road. There's a row of trees that you can see there where we're wanting to put the panels. Those trees have been removed, and then I have my personal drive to the right of the trees. So that's just property that's, the trees were there, we removed the trees. We're hoping to put solar panels there and then found out about the 30-foot setback.
How big, I see it's 3 different arrays, and I'm kind of judging it. How big are each array, square footage-wise, I guess?
So I actually have a representative on your Zoom.
Okay.
From Moxie Solar, Brandon Miller. He could answer any questions when it comes to size, dimensions, or anything like that.
Okay, can we ask Brandon Miller, you said, correct?
Yes.
To unmute himself to answer some questions about the actual solar array, please? Mr. Miller, we're just questioning what the actual square footage of each one of those sets is going to be on that spot, please.
Hi, Brandon Miller from Moxie Solar, National Managing Representative. Address is 62 Sandusky Street, Plymouth, Ohio, 44865. Yeah, I appreciate that question. is in respect to the back height of the total arrays, each array will be composed of 12 solar panels, and each panel is about 3 foot by 5 foot. So you're looking at 15 square feet. So if you do some quick math of the total of each subarray, you're looking at about 180 square foot. The good thing is these panels will be facing due south at a 30-degree tilt to provide optimal energy harvest, and the total height of the highest end of the back of the array will only be 9 foot and 3 inches. So a lot less of a viewable obstruction in comparison to the trees that were previously existing in that space.
So they'll be on a permanent angle, is that correct? They won't be like some of the solar farms where it twists and turns, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir. This is a fixed tilt mount, ground mount system utilizing a ground screw.
I see that. And the lower edge, how low will that get down to then? If it's 9 foot at the highest, what's the lowest?
It's about 18 inches on the leading edge, the lowest slope.
How do you plan to landscape around this and then be able to like mow around it if it's only 18 inches at the edge? What's your expectations on how it'll look at the end then?
Well, I would prefer not to have to mow close to the panels. What I plan to do is put 3 to 4 inches of either crushed concrete or limestone down with some sort of barrier underneath to keep weeds from
Keep
coming
weeds
in.
out, so everything like that, so, okay. So I guess would it look similar to the way the driveway looks then? Because
Yes.
that looks like it's crushed as well too. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner from the board?
Jason, this is Christine. Do you have a privacy fence there along the tree line?
There is no privacy fence where the arrays will be. There is a privacy fence to the north of them.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Nope. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition, please come forward or raise your hand. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to, please come forward or raise your hand. All right. Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments, questions, or entertain a motion? Yeah, I wanted to see how big, obviously you got to tilt it towards the sun. Where's that end up at? And I wouldn't want to weed whack underneath that thing, so that's where I'd want to look at it, so.
But I can see putting mesh and concrete down.
Yeah, some other things just to keep it from going up, yeah.
Because who wants to do it?
Right, exactly.
Less maintenance.
So 9 foot, 18, I'm trying to figure that angle, 9 foot down to 18 inches, it could be pretty severe, so.
Especially as short as they are.
Yeah, so, okay. Any other questions or comments, or I'll entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 4.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please, Sam?
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Bellman?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds the variance granted and will issue and find the facts. Thank you, sir. Sam, we have the reading of petition number 5.
The petition of Nativity of the Mother of God Serbian Orthodox Monastery, Inc., seeking a special use to allow Section 154.106B9F, educational and institutional uses, convents, seminaries, monasteries, and nunneries to allow for the continued use of an existing monastery, property located at 32787 Early Road and 32725 Early Road, Olive Township, Zoned R, Single Family District, County.
Yeah, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this petition concerns a existing monastery on Early Road, just south of New Carlisle. It is existing, as I said. It's at least been there in operation for over 27 years. And it appears to be legal non-conforming. At least part of this property was zoned agricultural at some point in the past, which allows for a monastery by right. This issue came to our attention when they attempted to apply for a permit for a new building. And the way our zoning ordinance is structured, a legal nonconforming use can continue to persist indefinitely, but it can't be enlarged in any way, and that includes the construction of an additional building. So therefore, they need to get this special use in order to fully legalize everything so that they can continue to use it fully and actually be able to construct new structures. I would like to remind everyone that for a special use, we're making a recommendation to the county council in this case. And there are 4 criteria in state law to use to consider whether to make a favorable or an unfavorable recommendation. The first being that the proposed special use will not be injurious to public health, safety, comfort, community moral standards, convenience, or general welfare. The staff finds that it will not be injurious to any of these values. In terms of quiet enjoyment, everything is well set back from any of the residential properties that it's adjacent to. Most of those residential properties are on rather large parcels themselves. It's also incredibly well screened. And if you look at the setbacks and the lot size, it's pretty much analogous to agricultural parcels. It's about 40 acres in total over 2 parcels, and everything is set back at least 30 feet from the property line. And were this still zoned agricultural, a monastery would be permitted by right. But just the fact that in this case it's zoned residential, it's not having any greater impact on adjacent residential properties than if it were zoned agricultural. We also find that the proposed special use will not injure or adversely affect the use of the adjacent area or property values therein. As I said, this use has been here for over 27 years at least. There's been no indication that it's had any adverse effect on any neighboring properties. It's well set back, well screened. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district in which it is located and the land uses authorized therein. In this case, the character of this district is somewhat like a rural single-family district. It's particularly of lower density on this side of Early Road and Timothy, and it's consistent with that. And the proposed use must be compatible with the recommendations of the St. Joseph County Comprehensive Plan. In this case, it's not inconsistent with any recommendations. The plan does call for this to be a residential growth area just outside of New Carlisle, but for the reasons stated before, there's no reason why this use should discourage any further residential development that might occur in this general vicinity. So for these reasons, staff recommends that this be sent to the county council with a favorable recommendation.
Any questions for staff? Awesome. All right. Is the petitioner on the line or in-house?
Andrew Helfrich with Barnes and Thornburg. I'm here with Mother Macrina, the Mother Abbess. And as the staff put forth in their report, the drive behind this, I mean, it's been a monastery for pushing 3 decades now. And at some point, we believe maybe the zoning had changed from ag to residential, or at least as mentioned, a portion of it. And when they went to obtain the building permit for their structure, that's when we became aware of this problem. So we're just asking that the use be permitted so they can continue their religious instruction there.
Any questions for the petitioner from the board? All right. Thank you very much for your input. The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to? Seeing and hearing none, the public portion is now closed. Is there any additional comments, questions, or I will entertain a motion? The only thing I was surprised it's zoned residential that far. I mean, it's not that far outside New Carlisle, but if that's a recognized area we want to add additional housing in, that's a good area, but I don't think a monastery is going to affect anybody building a house by it. They're probably about the best neighbors you could have.
I'll make a motion that we approve the petition for the properties at 32-725 and 32-787 Early Road.
This would be for a favorable recommendation.
Oh, favorable, yeah, right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Good, you're paying attention.
All we pay.
That's what they pay me for.
I'll second that.
So Mr. Holly made a motion to send the special use to the county council with a favorable recommendation, and that was seconded by Mr. Schaefer. Can we call for the vote, please?
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Me? Yeah. I couldn't hear her.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Velleman?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, will forward this special use to the county council with a favorable recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, can we have a reading of petition number 6, please?
The petition of Fur Road Holdings LLC seeking the following variance. 1, from section 154.107C1 to allow a front setback of 25 feet where 35 feet is required for each lot in a proposed 112 lot subdivision, properly located at an unaddressed 44.39 acre parcel immediately west of Clover Road and south of the Michigan-Indiana state line and the adjacent 41.2 acre parcel to the west. Harris Township, zoned R, Single Family District, County.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Ryan Fellows, Area Plan Commission staff, and as you can see, the area drawn on the map above, as described, it's along the state line, just west of Clover, and this is a proposed, as said, 112 lot subdivision. All of the other subdivisions in this area have, here's a picture of the vacant lot right now that has not been developed yet. And then this is just to the west of that. And so this is a sample of the residential character of the adjoining neighborhoods in the area. And you see there's the street is a less than 45-foot wide right-of-way with homes set back 25 feet from the right-of-way line. And they're trying to match this residential character. The current standard now calls for a 50-foot wide right-of-way. Not that the road necessarily increases in width, but where that the right-of-way is wider to accommodate any growth that might happen in the future, and plus it's additional space for any utilities as well. But the setback that's being proposed would be 25-foot setback from a 50-foot right-of-way, which from the center line of the road is 25 feet, so that's still, 50 feet from the center line of the road, as opposed to this subdivision, which probably is even less than that. So there would still be more space than what's currently the standard, but it'd be closer to the standard that it is, that they're trying to emulate. And then here's a depiction of what the 112 lot subdivision might look like with those 25-foot setbacks from a 50-foot wide right-of-way.
Excellent.
And so staff is supportive of this variance to make it match the character of the surrounding neighborhoods.
Mr. Huber.
Hi, Mike Huber, I'm Marsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend. I think staff did a really nice job kind of summarizing our petition request today. As noted, this is kind of the last, you saw in the picture, this is the last big open piece of property around the old Millwood area. We did kind of run into this a little bit when we were looking at providing a connectivity out the west, noticing and recognizing that the road right-of-ways are significantly narrower in the existing subdivisions around there. In addition to in addition to just wanting to kind of match the character of the surrounding neighborhoods, given the 40-foot rear yard setbacks required for the septic systems for the homes, the additional 10 feet reduction from 35 to 25 feet for the front yard setbacks allows the homeowners a little bit more usable backyard space, which gives them a little more flexibility in terms of accessory uses, pools, those kinds of things to have in the backyards, which are going to be pretty desirable in a subdivision like this. As noted, it's a 112 lot subdivision. I think these are going to be it's going to be a nice investment and in the tax base in the county when this is all finished as well. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
So it looks like there's an entrance off of Clover, obviously, and then there's another one to the existing subdivision over on the west side then, is that planned? So there'll be two egresses?
I think we're doing the connection to the west. I can't remember. This has already gone through the, this has already been approved through the primary plat process. Yep. We're just, only thing we're asking for today are variances on the front yard setbacks.
All right. Any questions for the petitioner? Thank you, Mr. Huber. Appreciate it. The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition, please come forward or raise your hand. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to, please come forward or raise your hand. Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments, questions, or I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 6.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please, Sam?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Velleman?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, find the variance is granted and will issue and findings of the facts. Thank you, Mr. Huber. All right. Can we have the reading of petition number 7, please?
The petition of Ash Road LLC seeking the following variances. 1 from section 154.092A to allow a lot area of 17.5 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required. And 2 from section 154.092C to allow a lot frontage of 90 feet where a minimum of 200 feet is required for a lot in a proposed subdivision. Property located at 53633 Ash Road, Harris Township, Zone A, Agricultural District, County.
Sean?
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So these variances concern an 80-acre parcel to the west of Ash Road, south of Pleasant Valley North. There's a proposal for a 70-lot residential subdivision, and the vast majority of this lot is zoned residential, but there is this 17.5 acre portion to the west that is zoned agricultural. So the proposal here basically is to retain that zoned agricultural and use it essentially to house the majority of the retention basins necessary for the subdivision. It would also allow for the building of one single-family home. Staff is supportive of the variances in this case. The reduction in the frontage that's required, the rationale for the 600 feet of frontage for an agricultural parcel is mainly based on parcels that are actually out on rural county roads and trying to discourage excessive drive openings onto those roads, so it's not really valid here. When you turn to the lot acreage, it's only a reduction from 20 acres to 17.5, and this area of land, although it's zoned agricultural, it's really a very limited agricultural potential given that it is surrounded by larger subdivisions on a number of sides. It's landlocked when you consider the agriculturally zoned portion on its own. And it's also potentially the site of several wetlands as well. So when we turn to the state law criteria, we find that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. We find that it will have no impact on public health, safety, or morals, and that Again, it won't affect general welfare because it's not really of much agricultural value. So it's better in this case to keep it zoned agricultural rather than rezoning to residential, in that it'll kind of serve as a buffer, and instead of spurring further potential residential encroachment into the agriculturally zoned district immediately to the west. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Because again, all we're here to discuss today is whether this agriculturally zoned portion can have a reduced frontage and a reduced lot area. So we're not here to really discuss whether the subdivision into these 70 residential lots would have any adverse impact on the surrounding area, just whether allowing a lot to be produced that's agriculturally zoned that doesn't meet the lot area and frontage requirements. And we find that it would serve a great purpose as a buffer between the two districts and therefore would not adversely affect those neighboring districts. We also find that strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulty because given the landlocked nature of this agriculturally zoned parcel, it's impracticable to ever require that it somehow be provided with 600 feet of road frontage. Furthermore, in order to get up to that 20 acres, they'd have to take some of the residentially zoned property and add it to the lot, which is just inefficient use of land, in our opinion. So for those reasons, staff recommends approval of these variances.
Can you go back to the slide that shows this, please, real quick? So really, the only thing we're talking about is that open portion all the way to the west.
That's
is our
exactly
biggest issue. All the
right.
subdivision is residentially zoned, it's all good.
It's all good.
That one house on that one cul-de-sac is gonna be less than 20 acres. So technically, it's not able to be built on right now, but this would allow one house to be built, but then also the retention, all the stuff that happens with that is gonna go back there.
Exactly.
Clear as mud?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, I was trying to avoid paying taxes. You know, being retention ponds on.
But it's gonna be a house on an ag lot, so I don't know how that would be taxed, I guess.
No, the retention pond, being it wasn't zoned or residential, for the retention pond setting,
Yeah,
it'd be fall under ag
yep, it will.
tax would, which would be way cheaper than residential.
I suppose we can ask Mr. Huber that. Any other questions for the staff?
In other words, how do they get away with putting their water on the ag ground?
Well, just to add on to what Sean had provided in his staff report, this is Abby with Area Plan Commission. We had consulted with Avonmarsh when they were putting this proposal together, and retaining the ag zoning was preferred by staff. So rather than putting forward a rezoning and further subdividing the land, we wanted to retain as much natural area as possible.
Because if it got zoned residential, they should put more houses on it.
Correct.
There's your other aspect.
Well, they gotta still have their pond.
Yeah, but they still could put 20 more houses in that spot.
Sure.
Yeah.
And since in this case, the lot that we would create that's zoned agricultural would be suitable for a single-family home, you can have uses that are accessory to it, including the retention. So.
There you go. Mr. Huber.
Yes, hi. Mike Huber, Avonmarsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana. As was noted, this parcel, as we were looking at the development and the subdivision of this parcel, we recognized that we had the 17.5 acres of agriculture split zoning. And for all of the reasons that were just being discussed, right? How do we best approach this? Do we want to bring this forward and bring it into a rezoning? Is there the possibility to get some additional lots on it? I think Sean covered in some good detail that there, in addition to the zoning aspect of this, I think a good chunk of this 17.5 acres also potentially has wetland and floodplain issues. So it's not really suitable for either agricultural or residential uses. And we knew we weren't going to be able to get a significant number of lots on this area without some additional work, site work, or, we potentially could have engineered around that. But I think in working with staff, we determined that the best approach would be to try to just leave this as an agricultural zoned lot, provide that additional buffer for further expansion of the residential west into the further ag that's to the west of this property. And this is the portion that's really consistent with the residential subdivisions north and south as well already anyway. So this felt like the best solution in order to kind of minimize impacts in the county, best use of land, and not have to go through the rezoning process, but rather just create this one building lot, put our retention ponds back there, ask for the reduction in the 2.5 acres of the 20, and then just have the lot accessible via the cul-de-sac as opposed to having a 600-foot road frontage in that
It's almost like
area.
an OB for between commercial and the residential side.
It's correct.
Buffering. Okay.
And happy to answer any other
Any
questions.
questions for Mr. Huber?
I don't have a response to the tax thing. I'm not 100% sure at what level agriculture properties tax versus residential in this case, but we could certainly get that answer.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? Thank you, Mr. Huber. The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Yes, sir.
I'm David Wickstrom, 53630 Ash Road, directly across the street from part of the property. So I'm a little confused, if you could help me. The approval, this farm field has already been approved as residential area?
It is zoned residential right now, so they can put that in with no variances, from what I understand.
Okay, my only, I don't know whether I speak approve or what. You said questions,
You're in the
so I'm
perfect spot.
asking
Yes, sir,
questions.
you're perfect.
I'm in favor of growth, but my big concern is the traffic on Ash Road. We've got semis, we've got all kinds of traffic. We're adding another 79 properties? 70 properties to that, and those little off-roads, everything goes onto Ash Road. That is a big concern, and losing farmland's the other concern.
This would add only one additional ingress egress onto Ash Road. The other ones would join the other ones.
But they,
That are currently there, correct, yes.
right, but they also go onto Ash Road.
Correct, yeah, they all go to Ash Road ultimately, correct, yes, so.
Is there anything to address the traffic?
Not
I
at
mean,
this point, because
because-
this is a different, that would have been addressed on the residential side. Unfortunately, we're only dealing with that last half of it for this petition, so.
And so they didn't have to inform the property owners when they got it changed to residential?
Yeah, it's been residential.
It's always been.
It's always been
residential,
residentially
so,
zoned.
Okay.
But to your concerns, that is all going to be fleshed out during the subdivision process. This subdivision still has to go through a public hearing. The first public hearing will be tomorrow, right here in the same room at 8:30. It is going to get tabled tomorrow, so you'll have other opportunities to get those concerns addressed, and we can talk afterward too. I'll give you my contact information on that as well.
Okay. And the other thing is you talked about the flooding to the west, but to the east, that area floods every time you get a rain, so I assume somebody's gonna address that and tell the people, because the new subdivisions, I don't know if these folks were involved or not, the ones that they just built with if you go through there in a moderate rain, everybody's got these big 4-inch things going out to the street. It's
Oh, from their homes?
It's a high water table.
Yeah, that will be, that'll be addressed in a different hearing, so unfortunately I have to come back to the city county building again once again, but yeah, that is out of our purview today, unfortunately, so.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, do you live in Elkhart County?
I do.
Okay.
I'm right across the street.
Yeah. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or have questions? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments or questions from the board, or will entertain a motion? I don't know about, when I looked at the first thing, I didn't really quite figure it out until seeing that we're just worried about that one last portion, because I'm like, well, we haven't approved any of this residential split yet, but it's already ours, so it doesn't matter. We just have to worry about the ag side of it, so that's the difference, so.
With that being said, I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for the property located at 53633 Ash Road.
Donnie Ritzma, and I'll second.
We We have a motion and a second. Sam, would you call for the vote, please?
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds the variance is granted and will issue and findings of the facts. Thank you, Mr. Huber. Thank you for your time, sir, Mr. Wickstrom. Appreciate your input. Yeah. If you stick around for a moment, yep. Abby will actually give you some information. Thank you. Then we have the reading of petition number 8, please.
The petition of Sisters of the Holy Cross, Inc., seeking 11 variances as requested on the agenda and petition, and will be reproduced in full in the minutes.
Great.
That was a very concise way to put that together.
Thanks to Brandy.
Good job.
I was hoping she was going to read them all.
I was not hoping that.
All right, on that, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this looks really bizarre and unwieldy, but what it really works down to, it's a unique situation that the zoning ordinance really isn't equipped to handle. Basically, all it is, St. Mary's needs to do some renovation on a parking lot and 3 buildings, I believe. In order to get the financing from a financial institution, they need to own these properties in fee simple, which means that they need to be on separate parcels so they can be transferred to them, which means they need to go through a subdivision ordinance, or a subdivision, which further means that they need to either meet all the development standards or they need variances. In this case, what they're proposing to do and how they need to get these under the fee simple ownership, there's no way they can meet all the development standards because they're really just not relevant to this situation. So as a result, in order to divide up around these buildings and the parking lot, they're going to need frontage variances for all the lots. They're going to need lot area variances for all the lots. They're going to need side setbacks for 3 of the lots and front setbacks for 1 of the lots. Staff supports these variances in this very unique case because there's really no justification for the lot area, frontage, or setback variances in this instance because all the parcels that are going to be created are going to still be surrounded by St. Mary's campus on all sides. So there's really no danger that they're going to fall into ownership by someone not affiliated with the university, so you're not going to have any access issues. Similarly, it's not going to really affect the further efficient use of land or anything of that nature. It's just so they can have ownership of specific parts of the campus. And as a result, we really don't feel that there's going to be any adverse impact on the public, surrounding properties. And there is a practical difficulty in that to get this funding, they need to acquire ownership of buildings and the parking lot. And the only way to do that is to establish separate parcels. So as such, we support the variances.
Any questions from the board for Sean? Mr. Danch, we had an earlier petition that had to do with, saving the, our environment a little bit. This is a lot of paper for this, so, but that's.
I'm sorry
being
about
facetious,
that,
that's
yeah.
all right. Mr. Danch,
Really?
Mr. Danch, would you like to add anything to the petition?
Sure. Mike Danch from Danch Arnon Associates, 1643 Commerce Drive, here in South Bend, representing, obviously, the St. Mary's College. Sean put it succinctly. What has happened is right now, obviously, the campus has several buildings that are in need of renovation. They're kind of going through an update on their entire campus. In order to do that, there has to be collateral for a lot of the financial things that are happening because some of these are like 4- and 5-story buildings that they are doing. We went out and did the survey work for it. Actually, the way you see these parcels, they're created, we actually went along the party walls for each of the structures because they've been built over time, over the decades, and so these are kind of additions to the different buildings that are out there. We worked with the staff on this because as soon as I found out there was an issue, I said, here's what we've got. One of the other unique things with the St. Mary's campus that we've got is actually 2 zoning classifications. It's kind of like half the campus is zoned university, which would allow me to do certain things under that university zoning. But the portion where all these renovations are happening, at least the ones that are proposed here, is actually under A agricultural. I have had discussions with the head people at St. Mary's campus over even the last couple of years. They were kind of hesitant because they don't understand zoning for one, on actually going through a rezoning process to rezone the rest of the campus as university. But even when Sean and I had talked about it, even if the whole campus would have been zoned university, I still would have been before you to ask for some variances for the way we have to do these particular splits. So mainly what we're asking to do is be able to create these 4 splits. We will go through a minor subdivision process, assuming the board would grant us the variances. And again, it's just to allow for the renovations for the building themselves. I'm trying to be in compliance with all the agricultural zoning issues, and since this is a university campus, this does not look like the regular agricultural variances that we always ask for. So what we would hope that the board would do is grant us the variances so that I can proceed to the minor subdivision stage. The attorneys for the campus also, for the access things that we were talking about, they do have a overall agreement that allows for almost any use on the campus to be able to get out to State Road 933. And sometimes you don't think about it, but there's also a utilities building for this that supplies water, sewer, gas, electric to all these structures too. So they had to have an agreement in place to allow for that to happen as well, so that you can continually add the services or have services for everything and be able to get over the existing driveways out to 933 so you have access to that public roadway. And if you've got any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
I don't. Board have any questions for Mr. Danch on this? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Danch. Appreciate the synopsis. The public portion is now open. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments or questions from the board, or I'll entertain a motion? I would just assume they could do whatever the heck they wanted to on their own lots, but that's not how it works, but that's fine.
No, they gotta break it all up.
No, I know, it's just interesting, yeah,
Guys,
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 8. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please, Sam?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer? Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful considerations, finds the variances granted and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you, Mr. Danch. Appreciate your time. Can we have the reading of petition number 9, please?
The petition of American Legion Post 365 seeking the following variances. 1 from section 10.09 F1 to allow an off-premise sign with 0 feet of linear spacing from a residential district where 200 feet is required. 2 from section 10.09 F2 to allow an off-premise sign with 0 feet of radial spacing from a residential district where 100 feet is required. Property located at an unaddressed triangular parcel north of Maple Avenue, west of Reed Street, and southeast of State Street, North Liberty, Zone C, Commercial District.
All right. This is a vacant triangular parcel that is owned by the American Legion, whose building happens to be located directly across the street and east of the property. They are requesting permission for an off-premise sign because it's separated by right-of-way and we treat it like an off-premise. Then it would be classified as an off-premise per the zoning ordinance, which it's allowed in the commercial zoning district, but it is required to be spaced 200 feet from a residential district and 100 feet radial from a residential district. There's residential zoning that is immediately across from the property. The petitioner took the request to the Town of North Liberty Council, and minutes were included in the meeting that the town doesn't see an issue with it. The petitioner has also included a rendering of a sign in close proximity. Actually, this is just north on the west side of the street where that large parcel is located, the emergency services sign. Staff recommends approval of the requested here's the lot where the subject property, the parcel where the sign is proposed to be located. An existing marquee style sign is there currently. Here is where you can see the building in relation to the vacant property where the sign is to be located. And the rendering that was provided that's just down the street, north and across the street of the subject property. Staff's recommended approval of the variance because it is unlikely, or it's unlikely that approval would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. A similar sign is located in near proximity to the subject property. The use and value of the area included, or of the property would not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Again, there's a similar sign in close proximity, and the electronic message center that's proposed to be in the sign will need to meet all the requirements of the North Liberty zoning ordinance. And strict application to the terms of the chapter does result in a practical difficulty. It's unfortunate that their property is located across the street, separated by street right-of-way, which necessitates the need for the variance. So staff recommends approval of the requested variances for the sign.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for the staff? Yes, sir.
Yes. Good afternoon. Richard Warner. I live at 604 Sylvia Drive in North Liberty. I am the chaplain for American Legion Post 365. The petition before you now is there. The town of North Liberty changed their code back in 2018, which requires a signage to be next to the building, which our Legion is now across the street. This property is the old home of our American Legion that got tore down. We built a new one quite a few years ago. And the variances are required because of residentials on the east side and to the south side. And we would have at least a 15-foot setback, because if you've seen the state plows come through on State Road 23 when we get snow, they'll throw it that far. So we're not going to put so this is for our electronic messaging sign that we'd like to put up that looks very similar to the fire department, which I could just about hit with a snowball if I had to. So it's very close. So we would like your, agree with the staff and like your vote favorably for this.
It's too early to keep talking about snow.
It's,
Somebody else said that too, you're right. Mr. Warren, thank you for this.
that's a great drawing.
Did you do that?
No, I did not. I
Okay.
can't take credit for that, but.
I would have preferred the technical term instead of just big gun at the end there.
Well,
I would have
it's,
liked the technical term on what that gun is.
It's really not big
That would
either,
have been
depending on what
cool.
you want. But thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Yes, okay. So there's already, obviously because of the poles and everything out there, you already have power out there, so everything's existing, because you already have the marquee sign as well too, so you don't have to upgrade any electrical, nothing else to get that taken care of at all?
No, we do have to upgrade electrical. There,
Okay.
we have a contractor waiting. We're going to trench over. We have a set for that. That sign that's there now is just it is pretty much a permanent, temporary sign that's been there since I lived in North Liberty in 1975. So, but that is the general location of where the new sign will be. The town requires a 15-foot setback, which we will follow their building codes to get the building permit. And
So basically, everything will be adhered to on the rest of the ordinances, except that since it's technically off-site, it has to get that variance.
Right.
Okay.
So it's actually gonna sit farther back than what that one does now.
It is.
Oh,
It
If
is.
you're gonna be 15 foot off, it's gonna be definitely back a little bit.
Yes.
Good, all right. Any questions from the board for the petitioner?
Do these electronic signs have like timers on them or something, or is it going to be flashing bright lights all day and all night? I'm not sure how that works.
Well, it's going to be exactly like the fire department sign, which generally gives you any emergency information that comes on, gives you weather information or whatever is happening in the community. So it's very similar to what the town hall has in front of that property, which is up 2 blocks over. And so it will not be any bright lights to affect the residents. It's going to be further off. So it isn't any different than what our fire department currently has.
Okay.
And from the example you gave, that's a great question. The example you gave, it's mostly red lights. It's not a like full color array LED type thing, or is it just the red lights like what is shown on your example?
No, it can have color if you choose to do that. It's just, yes. So it's LED, and you can pretty much program that to do what you want it to say. So,
And then just to elaborate on Christine's question a bit, it will need to comply with the requirements of the changeable copy signs for electronic message centers in the town of North Liberty zoning
That was
ordinance.
gonna be my next question. A long time ago, we talked about the lumens and all the kind of stuff you can do on signs. Has that ever been brought into an ordinance of what the maximum is?
So the town of North Liberty's requires automatic dimming controls by photocell or via software settings. They require that it not exceed a maximum luminance level of 250 nits, and that it comply with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration requirements for being dimmed at night, that it has to be displayed for a minimum of 4 seconds, with a maximum transition time between messages of 1.5 seconds.
So there's truly an ordinance for that now, which is good.
Correct, so because they said they're meeting the requirements of the ordinance, when North Liberty issues the permit, you have to comply with all the standards.
I don't know. You ever drive on 23, that one on that side road, it just bright as the sun sometimes, so glad we finally put that into place. Good.
Oh, the one that looks like a squad car.
Yeah.
That's the one, yeah.
Any additional questions for the petitioner?
This is 7:50.
Thank you, Mr. Warner, appreciate your time. The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. I'll entertain a motion, or if there's any more comments or questions on it.
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 9.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Sam, would you call for the vote, please?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Velleman?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, find the variance is granted and will issue it in finding the facts. Thank you, Mr. Warner. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Can we have the reading of petition number 10, please?
The petition of Lee Fisher seeking the following variance from section 154.092C to allow a lot frontage of 416 feet where 600 feet is required for a proposed single-family dwelling. Property located at 22711 Madison Road, Green Township, Zoned A, Agricultural District, County.
All right. This property is vacant, approximate 30-acre parcel. As stated in the application, the petitioner is proposing to construct a single-family home. Even though the subject property meets the minimum required lot area, it does not have the minimum frontage needed in order to meet the agricultural standards and be considered buildable. We could not find a record of a residential structure on the property. As noted in the application, if the petition were approved, the petitioner would construct a single-family home that would take approximately 2 acres out of production from the 15 acres that is currently being farmed. Even though this is an area that features a number of smaller parcels that do not meet the lot area or frontage requirements of the agricultural district, it's unclear. It doesn't appear that a lot of these parcels were subdivided via proper formal subdivisions, or if they're lots of record. In looking at the state code criteria, the approval could potentially be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, general welfare, because it would create another buildable residential lot that doesn't meet the requirements of the agricultural district, and that would apply to it affecting the use and value of the area adjacent. strict application to the terms of the ordinance would not necessarily result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. It could continue to be used as agricultural, even if it were not permitted to be a buildable lot for single family. So staff recommends denial of the variance.
So while it has the acreage and it just doesn't have the frontage is what it boils down to.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is that a house or a barn?
That is a large agricultural building. And Mr. Fisher is here to elaborate.
Any other questions for the board or the staff? Mr. Fisher?
Hello, everyone. Lee Fisher, 1204 Jersey Circle, Mishawaka. I purchased the land in 2013 from Pet Refuge with the intention of building. Since there was already a building on the parcel, I was under the impression this was a buildable lot. There's no mention that I could not build on the lot when I purchased it. I even had some soil samples done, contingent on that the soil would pass when I purchased the land, which it did, and I have records that it shows it would support a septic system. There are many similar parcels right down the road from me with homes right on the same road, similar type of parcels, even smaller than what I have. The parcel was split prior to my purchase. This parcel has an existing driveway. There should be no increase in the required utility services or infrastructure provided by the county. Electric is already provided back to the barn. I plan to build an 1,800 square foot house and minimize the impact on the agricultural footprint. The house will be located just right outside the barn where there's good soil for the septic system. I plan to continue to be a good steward of the land and continue farming the property.
Are you currently farming it? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, yep, it's in alfalfa
So
right
that
now.
was, the site plan left me a little incomplete. So you're gonna build the house right next to, or in close proximity to the barn, not anywhere near the street? It's gonna
Correct.
be more towards the middle of the whole lot, is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yep. It's, I think this says 1,275 feet from the road.
From the road, okay.
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Have you run this septic situation through the health department?
Yes, I have.
What did they ask you to do?
I have already received from the health department the requirements for the septic system. Tim Monahan is designing my septic system, and Bass Septic I have planned on putting it in if approved.
Do you know, do you have to go with a mound system?
If you see, there's quite a downfall from the topographical falls down quite a bit south of the barn, and I think Tim's going to be able to design something that I may not need a mound, but whatever the county wants, that's what they get.
That's what you'll put in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So you're wanting, is there a specific reason why you want to be 1,300 feet off of the road? Why you can't go back any farther?
Yeah, well, it's wooded. That's 15 acres in the front, and there's 15 acres that it's all wooded to the half-mile section. So if you
Will you go back
could pull up an overhead,
one more? Right
there you go. You see the barn is located right in the middle of the property, and that's all wooded behind. And also, I'd be close to my neighbor's house, actually. I mean, his house is set back. If you see the house to the east, he's set back, and it's just an absolutely beautiful view looking over that alfalfa
Ranch or two-story?
ranch.
Is there not a reason, well,
Ask the questions, I mean, that's what you're here for.
That's what he's here for.
I mean, is the main denial
Just because of the frontage.
the frontage?
Everything else he complies with. Yeah.
Really. He's using an
Yeah, 'cause there's an
type
I'm,
existing-
I'm 180
Existing
feet.
drive, there's new cut. I mean,
Nothing hurts, man.
yeah, I mean, just because he's missing 160 feet of frontage basically, or whatever it boils down to is the reason. 30 acres, I mean, it all else. Are you getting at, could he move the house a little bit to gain the 2 acres back of the
Yeah, I
alfalfa?
mean, I guess the biggest thing is.
Well, you know, I put 2 acres down, but I'm gonna minimize, I mean, all I need is a footprint for the house and the septic.
Yeah,
You know, that's all I need. And I try to take care of the land. I have bees out there because I know what they do for the environment and.
Right.
Use any more than the subdivision house would.
Hey, that's why we're here. We're here to make those decisions. That's
know,
the thing.
this
So,
hurts.
I know.
But you know how many lots like that don't comply in the county?
I know, that's why.
Right.
I mean, is aside from the frontage, is there an issue that you have?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what I wanted to know.
Any additional questions for the petitioner from the board? No?
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. Appreciate your time. The public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. Any additional comments, questions? I will entertain a motion.
What are you looking at me?
I want to know what you're thinking. You have an opinion that I may value.
I do have an opinion. I think that, I think this is one of those instances where our road frontage is a bit ridiculous because we have the acreage, we have everything else, there's no other problem aside from our road frontage, and there's how many other, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
5,
look at the one right
6,
next to it. It
7,
doesn't meet
8,
600
9.
feet.
I mean, there's 9 right in a row.
That is our job to let those people out from that if we feel that is truly required. The ordinance is what it is.
I know.
If there's more beyond the ordinance that should be allowed, that is our job to allow.
But you know they're gonna address the ordinance in the next, year and a half? Isn't that what it is?
They're talking about it, yeah.
They're talking about it.
So maybe it's only 300 feet next year.
So they already feel there's issues with it because of every little minor sub that gets whacked off. And there's a 2-acre lot and
Right,
there's
and that's,
18 left.
so I get where you're coming from. I mean, this is, by all means, it's like, this is kind of a no-brainer, right? But exactly, I mean, but you have people that want to come in and take 30 acres and
That's
put
the problem.
10 lots onto
Yeah.
it as well too and all that. That's why everyone stands on its own as well too. I mean, there's only one mitigating factor in this one, whereas other ones we've had multiple mitigating factors. Been like, yeah, you're really trying to stretch, this is one of those where it's like, if your gut tells you to do something, then that's what you do. And there's 6 other board members who could disagree with you, so you may not really matter anyway. So that's why it's 7 people.
Then look at the barn back there that's probably over 22 foot to the top.
Yeah. We don't have to address that here. That's beyond our scope here on that one.
Need to stop.
They didn't need that.
I am still open for any additional comments or a motion.
What I encourage you all to go back to is, going back, whether you think if there's merit in granting the variance, look at it through the lens of the required state code criteria. Because you do approve written findings of fact, showing that the petition met the criteria that was necessary in order for it to be granted. Now, Sean and I bang those out for you, and you adopt them and approve them, and Joe signs off on them. But going back to the criteria, do you think that it would be harmful to the public health, safety, morals, general welfare? Do you think the use and value of the area adjacent to the property would be affected in a substantially adverse manner? And does strict application to the terms of the chapter result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property? Because that's what it ultimately comes down to. If you all make a decision that's counter to staff's recommendation, that's totally fine, but being able to say that it meets each of those 3 criteria.
My problem is the 2 acres. That's it's,
he could not put a house on there,
I
and
know,
not
he
put
couldn't,
anything out.
and-
He could let that
feel
15
like if we
acres go.
coulda
and call it.
Make it a, you're making this hard, Abby.
Right, what I'm saying is that if you feel that approval is warranted, you would just need to, not need to, but you would, next month, you'd need to adopt the findings of fact showing that it met all the criteria. And if you feel like there's
Brandy has to defend it.
and if you feel like there's
If somebody
justification,
challenges it and, they've only got a period of time to do it, but
and if you feel like there's justification to do that, then that warrants the granting of the variance.
Mm-hmm.
If not, then Brandy's in trouble. When, right, no, that's
I will
just a
always
joke.
do my best for you.
If you go by the 3 criteria, is it going to be injurious to the neighbors? No one said it would be. And let's see, I gotta go with the other ones. What are the other ones? I can't read. I don't have those wrote in my head like you do, Abby. Injurious to public health, safety, morals, general welfare. I mean, you're adding tax base, so that's actually good for the general welfare of the community, I guess, maybe? Because it's improving a lot and getting more tax dollars. Or you can see that as bad, because government's bad, how you personally feel. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected substantially. The 2 acres that he may take out isn't terrible, isn't great, isn't,
No different than a subdivision.
No
No, it's no
different
different than a
subdivision.
subdivision, I agree.
and would it result in practical difficulties in the use of the land? Well, so if you're thinking about that,
Potentially, yes.
potentially, but 30 acres ag, but only 15 of it's being used because most of it's wooded, so it's really not, it does result in a slight practical difficulty in my mind, because there's no use for that back half.
Wait a minute.
What?
Tree farming is agriculture.
Does that look like a tree farm to you?
We logged down 10 acres of woods this past year. So yeah, it does look like a tree farm possibly.
I'm open to, I'll make a motion if I have to, but I'm open to a motion from the board, or from the board if they'd like to make it.
I'll make a motion that we accept it as written.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I have a second coming.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a
Second
second.
coming.
A second coming. No, not this time, but thank you, Mr. Holly. Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Schaefer and a second by Mr. Holly for this petition. Would you call for the vote, please, Sam?
Mr. Tavernier?
Oh, really? You have to make me first?
Yep.
Come on.
Can I ask for a clarification before you vote, DJ? The motion is to accept.
Correct. The motion is to accept. Yes, Christine.
Okay, thank you.
To accept the denial?
No, accept the approval. Yeah, the motion was to approve the variance as requested.
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema?
No.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher?
Yes.
Mr. Velleman?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, accepts the, or, shoot, I lost my sheet, there it is. Finds the variance granted and will issue written findings of the facts. Good luck on your home, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Tavernier would like you to keep as much alfalfa as you can, so if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Sam, we have the reading of petition number 11, please.
The petition of Dev 52694 State Road 933 LLC seeking the following variances. One, from section 154.378 to allow a freestanding sign with a sign surface area of 207 square feet where a maximum of 100 square feet is allowed. And 2, from section 154.378 to allow a freestanding sign with a height of 23 feet 1 inch where a maximum of 15 feet is allowed. Property located at 52694 State Road 933, Clay Township, Zone C, Commercial District, County.
Yes, Ryan.
All right, this is Ryan Fellows with the Area Plan Commission staff. This This is for a new car wash. There was an existing car wash on this property, but this will be a new drive and shine. It'll be both a car wash and a quick lube. And the petitioner gave us examples, a big packet of pictures with, in Dropbox file with properties up and down the 933 corridor. Our bylaws do call for, do identify that the area of interested parties encompasses 660 feet surrounding the property. And within that range, I did pull up the old building permits or sign permits to see what the existing signs in that area, what kind of the range was. The range for the size ranged from 48 to 140 square feet. And again, what's being proposed here is 207. So that's well above that range of even the largest of signs. And then for the height, range from 6 feet high to 55 feet high, which the one that's 55 feet high is very much an outlier. Most did not fall that high. And then looking at, under the current sign regulations, it calls for 100 square feet with 15 feet high. And that 100 square feet is kind of nestled in between the existing range of 48 to 140. The new sign ordinance does call for that to be 100 square feet, and then a height of 15. And again, what's being proposed here is 23 feet 1 inch. But then if you look at, I'm gonna switch over to I'll keep to the staff report, I guess. Looking at the sign components, so we kind of have an idea of what all is being discussed, because the square footage sounds like a lot, and just to make sure it's clear what we're talking about. The way the sign ordinance reads, for the oval part, that counts as 56 square feet. The 2-panel signs are 16 square feet each, so that's 32 square feet total. And so that's the car wash and the quick lube, those 2 panels. And then the electronic message center, the screen is approximately 35 square feet. And when you look at the zoning code, if the base were to be 3 feet or less, then that would not contribute to the overall square footage of the sign area. But this base is higher than that 3 feet, so the entire base all adds to that. And indeed, the space between the oval at the top and the 2 panels of car wash and quick lube also count in our sign ordinance, so that creates a total of 207 square feet. Looking at the sign ordinance to see part of the justification that you see in the application, the applicant argues that he should be counted as a multi-tenant sign. And in the sign code, it does say if there are 3 or more establishments. In this case, you're kind of advertising 2 establishments, even though they are the same owner. So if you kind of looked at it and gave a little bit of room there and said, okay, well, if we treated this like a multi-tenant sign, then a freestanding multi-tenant sign could be 140 square feet and 25 feet in height. And if you looked at it that way, the 23 feet 1 inch being proposed for height would count within the multi-tenant size. And if you decreased the base, so those 3 feet high, so it would not count toward the overall area of the sign, that would also work to decrease that overall size. And so staff is recommending that the Area Board of Zoning Appeals would consider this a multi-tenant sign and allow it to be a maximum of 140 square feet in area with a maximum of 25 feet in height. And if they were to re-engineer the sign, take out that the base down to 3 feet. They would decrease that surface area, and they would be able to get pretty close to that. With a little bit of engineering, they could fit within the multi-tenant sign. And so staff is recommending that be considered. Looking at the corridor, I did pull up, I did run out into the middle of 933 to get this picture for everyone here, so you'd get an idea of what it would be like if you were driving in that lane, looking for the car wash. The yellow arrow is pointing down to where the old car wash sign is located. And just to the right of that on this screen is the animal hospital sign, which is 20 feet high. And then you have closer in the foreground on the left side is the Phantom Fireworks sign, which is 31 feet high. I did not have the height for the McDonald's and some of the other signs, so I didn't include that here. But the Culver sign is 24 feet high. And so you kind of get an idea of, how high signs are. And what you find is if you're looking for like the Hampton Inn and you're looking at the height of the vehicle that's in front of where the Hampton Inn sign is, which is on the right side, just next to that tree on the right side, the height of that car, looking to the height of that sign, you would never be able to see the Hampton Inn sign when you're getting up close to it. You could only see it from a distance. It's just unreasonably high. And so the sign ordinance does call for certain maximums for height and certain maximums of size. And we feel that the multi-tenant sign would be appropriate in this instance. And so looking at the 3 criteria found in state law, for if it were to be viewed and approved by you to be the multi-tenant size, then it would fall under what we would believe to be not injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. And the use and value of the area adjacent to the property would not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And again, continuing on, if this were within the multi-tenant standard, the strict application of the terms of the chapter, it would be found favorable for that as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does the ordinance also ask for landscaping?
We do not have any landscaping requirements for signs. That's something that we can look at when we do the new comprehensive plan.
Please?
So basically, if they had the same setup that they have at their Mishawaka location, if it had detailing or something on there, we wouldn't even be in this situation, right?
Well, the area is still going to be too large for the multi-tenant, so they would have to work that out. So the height, yes, but the area, no.
So if you'd put where the small brick are, if you'd put 3 posts in there or something, all of a sudden you'd get away with not having the square footage issue.
Well, if they were to reduce the bigger block down to 3 foot, so that counted as a base, then you could have the other style brick, and you would at least eliminate 3 square feet by 96 inches. So that would be, yep. So you'd be decreasing it by like 24 square feet, yeah.
Right. And I guess what I'm looking at, if you'd get rid of the little square blocks, you're also opening it up so you can see through it.
That could be decreased to decrease the overall.
For driving purposes, because I'd like to shoot whoever came up with the idea of putting these little trees in the middle of roads where you can't see if you're up at a truck. When they're full, you know that story?
I will say that if you are proposing a pole sign, that requires a greater setback than a monument-style sign.
Oh, does it?
Mm-hmm. A 25-foot setback.
And this would still be considered monument because it goes all the way to the ground.
Correct. Monument style is defined as a sign constructed on the ground surface with its sign display surface attached to a pedestal base. And it has to, the base at the width has to be, or the base must be at least 75% of the width.
You say
Okay. Any additional questions for the staff on board? All right. Is the petitioner on the Zoom call?
Yes, sir, I am.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the petition?
I think it would be helpful for us to maybe spend a couple of minutes. I know you've already been through this for the last couple hours and you're probably trying to get out of here. But I feel it really important to explain that what we're after is quality, not so much quantity. In other words, I think that if I heard correctly what the staff is recommending, you're saying that if we reduce, or please, can you put up the picture of this sign that we're proposing? Or should I can't do that, I guess I can share. Would you please explain what you're suggesting we do with that masonry base to make it so it fits the description of what you gave?
Sure, I can do that. This is Abby. What we're proposing to do, what we're proposing for you to consider is reducing the base to less than 3 feet in height. That way it doesn't count toward the overall area, and it gets you really close to what would be allowed for a multi-tenant. Multi-tenant is what I think you had initially proposed, but we couldn't call you a multi-tenant sign when the application was filed. Variance is still required, and it's still an approval above and beyond what the ordinance would allow. But what's been applied for is over 200 square feet because the ordinance makes us count the base if it's higher than 3 feet. Does that make sense to everyone?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm still a little confused. So if I were to reduce the base to 3 foot, now because we have the digital board is set at 94 inches above ground, what would I do between that 3 foot and that 94 inches? Just put a pole in there?
The issue's the block, right?
Yeah.
Not the brick. So essentially what you're asking them to do is
Take 94 inches down to 36.
No.
is to not make the block.
Yeah, I think what the
So
staff
high.
is recommending is you don't need to remove the block, or the brick, the 4-inch brick underneath the sign, but the large block,
8-inch.
all the way at the bottom, the 8-inch, needs to get reduced down to 3 foot,
Less than 3 feet.
less than 3 feet.
It reads, the base of a monument sign does not count as sign area if it's less than 3 feet in height. So if it is 35 inches in height, then we don't have to count it toward the sign area.
Right, so then it doesn't count towards your square footage,
Just
Exactly.
the block
Not the
only.
brick.
But the brick can be retained.
The brick can stay.
The material doesn't matter. It just needs to be masonry that's less than 3 feet.
Well, then I completely misunderstood the entire time then. I thought we were just talking about the block. You're talking about that entire 94-inch of masonry.
Whatever the masonry is, if it's under 3 feet, then we don't count it towards the square footage.
Got it. So it doesn't matter if it's block or brick. It's got to be down underneath 3 feet.
Mr. Tarani, does that answer your question?
It does. I think that's what I believe that's what you had told us, prior to this. And so the issue for us is, so that's going to reduce the height of the sign so dramatically, because now if I was to only put a 3-foot masonry base on this, I'm reducing the height by another 6 feet or so, if I'm doing the calculation correctly. And so instead of being 23 foot high, now I'm down to like 17 foot high. May I share? I would like to share screen. Can I do that also? Because I have this in the Dropbox, but I think it's valuable to show you what I'm competing against in the area. Buildings that are worth a fraction of just a small part of our building. I mean, buildings that are worth $200,000, if that. This is a $5 million project, by the way, minimum. That's just the construction cost. And we are asking for this massive investment made into the county to be far less represented and far less visible than existing structures that advertise other buildings that we have to compete against. Because as you know, if you're traveling, your eyes come in contact with the biggest thing, which typically is a billboard. Then after that is the next biggest thing, which is all these other big signs that I'd like to share. May I do that?
You should be able to now.
Okay, great. So this is about a quarter of a mile north of us. There's a family video. I don't know if it's dark yet, but there might as well be. Look at the size of that sign. Jay, if you want to add any comments to this as I go through these pictures, Jay is our sign person who's basically worked with us from the get-go on every one of our sign locations. So he knows the expectations that we have as far as quality, whatever else that we know. So Jay, I think it would be helpful just to set the stage for what it is that, and why it is that what we do.
Hi, I'm Jay Stauffer. I'm with Van Atco Signs in Argus, Indiana. Haji, I think you need to double click on whichever photo you'd like to discuss.
Is it not up there yet?
Well, we've got all the photos in a thumbnail.
Oh, no, I wanted to have this one be there. So how do I get out of that one?
Double click on whichever one you want.
I did. I double clicked and I brought it up.
Two screens.
That must have opened another screen, then you have
Move
to
it to the
share.
screen that you're presenting on.
Oh, you know what? I think I gotta move it over to the other side. So forgive me. Let me reduce the size of it and bring it to the other side. And does that work? Oh, no, I have to tell it what I'm sharing. Forgive me. I figured it out. Now I'm gonna have to move it back from here to the other side. I think I got it figured out. Let me close this. Let me
Bless you.
okay, I think that worked, right?
There you go.
There.
Sorry about that. I use Team as my means of communication. This is a different format, so forgive me for not knowing how to operate. But yeah, so this is family video. Okay. Hey Jay.
Yes.
Did we lose you?
Nope, I'm here.
Did you want to say anything?
Well, just, again, we're trying to go with quality and the masonry, counting masonry as square footage, it is not sign, and it's really prohibitive to quality. We would be able to do a pole sign, such as the family video, but in our opinion and in the scope of the project, it just doesn't look good. The masonry we're using matches the building, and it's just not the look Drive and Shine is wanting to put out there with just a steel pole with signs stuck on it.
I'm gonna go to the next picture. Now, hopefully, I don't know what did it bring up the next picture?
No.
Nope.
Oh yeah. Every time I want to do this, I have to tell it that I'm switching screens. What about now?
Yes.
Okay, now I understand what I'm supposed to do. Every time I bring up a picture, I have to go into the selection and tell it to switch screens. So I'll do that from here forward.
Okay, can I clarify something?
Yeah.
Or are we
You can ask questions, yes.
are we waiting for him to finish?
No, you can ask questions during his presentation, yeah.
Okay, so what you're proposing is that we just accept this sign right now into their multi-tenant sign, which will then appease the county for the square footage variance, right?
Are you asking me or
No,
are you asking the
sorry,
staff?
I'm talking to Ryan.
Yeah, we're talking to staff right at the moment, Mr.
What we're proposing is if the Area Board of Zoning Appeals wishes to treat this situation as if it's a multi-tenant situation, the maximum sign that would be allowed with a multi-tenant would be
140
square
feet.
there we go, 140 square feet with 25 maximum in height. He wouldn't have to go that big or that high, but if it were authorized that would be the maximum that could be allowed, then you would stay within the county standard as if it were a multi-tenant situation, which this is 2 and the code requires 3. So this is a relatively smaller leap than just abandoning everything and just going to anything. And that's why when I was analyzing the situation, I looked at our requirement is that interested parties be within 660 feet. That's everyone within that block that he's competing with for visual attention. He's not competing with someone from, miles away. That's not someone he's trying to compete with, trying to get their eyeballs to see his sign.
So just to summarize, and then I'll let him, we'll let him proceed with his presentation. What is allowed by ordinance is 100 square feet in area, 15 feet in height. What's been applied for is 207 square feet in area, 23 feet and 1 inch in height. And what we're proposing is an amended approval that considers the unique nature of his business to say, okay, well, maybe a slightly larger sign is warranted based on having different operations. If we look at what the multi-tenant would allow, then that would be the 140 square feet in area and 25 feet in height, which the proposal is well under that.
Okay, so basically, I'm overcomplicating this. That laugh said it all. Okay.
The question is.
Well, and the other thing to consider, guys, is, we're allowing, if we decide to move forward with the, as proposed, we're allowing a multi-tenant establishment, but really, it says that a sign that advertised 3 or more establishments within a building or series of buildings in an integrated center is multi-tenant, so we're kind of stretching that as well.
Right.
Because the Drive and Shine is really only doing lube and car wash.
Well, you wouldn't
Something
be
to think
officially
about.
classifying it as a multi-tenant. You would just be taking the staff's recommendation that the requirements for a multi-tenant sign seem generally applicable here also.
Right.
Okay.
So Mr. Tarani and Mr. Stauffer, the scale of the sign is very grand, and I'll give you, it's very good looking. Can the scale be shrunk and still meet the applications that you're looking for if we were to find a compromise between what ordinance allows versus what you're requesting? I mean, is the 207, square feet total required based off of the scope of where this is being applied at?
207 square foot includes a substantial amount of just simply brick and masonry. That's just kind of that's the way the ordinance reads, but it's.
And that's the rules we have to live by, so.
Yes, I understand, and that's why we have this process to
You're
look
exactly
at.
right.
But that seems like you're encouraging people not to use brick and masonry, which is, I think, counterproductive to quality.
And I did not participate in the sign ordinance update. It was pretty well on its way when I came on, but my understanding, and these guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the ordinance is getting at trying to get folks to do monument-style signs.
Yeah, monument versus pole.
Yeah.
They want monument-style signs, that's.
That's what the county is wanting.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wouldn't call this a monument sign. Yeah, it sits all the way to the ground, but this is a.
Looks better than a pole sign.
It does look better than a pole sign, but it's almost a pole sign because of the height of it realistically. So we're applying standards for a mounted sign on the ground that really is going well up into the air, so. And that unfortunately is a requirement because of the stone and everything else like that, so.
So if you look at the neighbor just to my north, basically this is a fireworks place, single tenant building, extremely run down. I don't have to tell you all the other stuff about it. I mean, and just to the east of it, there's a hotel that has an advertising sign that's far bigger than this, by the way. But just this is the one right next to mine. This building, the whole building is an advertising sign. It says Phantom Fireworks and the Phantom, and we are basically constructing behind this building. So in my view, building a far more quality-oriented operation and having a far less smaller sign lower to because if I reduce the masonry, I would be basically reducing the height of the sign dramatically. We just think that we would be so disproportionate to this facility just to the north of us, directly back. The boundary of this property touched the boundary of mine, and I just think that we're reducing the likelihood of our success. I tell you, this location is already a marginal location in our whole, part of the reason I hadn't built this earlier is because we consider this location not as attractive as our Niles location or many others that we have on our plate. But the fact that we own that car wash and we knew that the customers were starting to know that it was ours, not Schilling, I chose to take it down. And so before doing this, I should have come to you and said, I need this before I take it down. And I would have hoped that at that time, when you looked at the quality of what was there compared to what I'm going to put up, you might have said yes. So now I'm coming on the back end, and I understand that now it's already like a done deal. And so you may have less desire to tell me yes. But honestly, I think it would be totally unfair to make us take away all that beautiful masonry, which somehow in your ordinance is added to the size of the sign, because that's not advertising space. We don't advertise on masonry. We just wanted to build something that was proportionate and build it high enough so we thought it would be at least have a chance of visibility. And so I feel like we're not asking for as much as it appears that we're asking. I know when you look at the numbers, the way that was read, it appears that we're just going out of proportion. But when you look at what's already there, what's existing, because these signs aren't changing overnight. Most of these operations are going to exist for a long time to come. So somehow my visibility has to compete with the visibility of what's existing. So if you were to put yourself in my shoes for just, briefly, and forgive me for me describing it that way, because I know you do, but you would understand my dilemma as to why I feel we would be compromised if we didn't have a big enough sign. When I say big enough, our signage isn't that big. It's the masonry that's making it appear big, and our height is far less than almost every other sign on this street here. And that's why I was going to go through 24 pictures for you, but I decided not to because I feel like I'd be wasting your time. But you already know what's there. And Ryan showed you some of them that were 50 plus foot off the ground. We're only suggesting 23 feet high. And if you take me down to 17 or something like that, meaning take all that masonry away, I feel like it would be unfair.
On the subject of time, the petitioner technically only has 10 minutes, which I'm quite sure has passed.
Well, we've been interrupting him though too, so.
Okay, I'll shut up. I don't have to really, I was going to read to you my logic for all this, but you have a copy of it, so I don't need to. We are going to add tax base, significant tax base, and we're going to add a lot of jobs. That's on top of just, the fact that we'll bring in a very, very high quality project to the county. And so I really don't need to say more, I guess.
Understood. Thank you for your information, Mr. Tarani. I appreciate the input. Yeah, it's an interesting situation when, we want to stimulate growth. We want to keep the city and the county growing, but there are things we have to abide by. So that's where, you're correct. That's what we're here for. Any additional questions for the petitioner from the board?
Did you say that the masonry is already in place?
No, we wouldn't be allowed to do anything until we had a
It's a
permit.
flat piece of land right at the moment. Even though Schillings is gone.
There's already a sign there. I mean, that's already grandfathered in. We can use that sign if we wanted to. It looks like heck. You've seen it already. I mean, that's an absolutely terrible. It looks just like this fireworks sign.
All right. Mr. Tarani or Stoffer, is there anything else you'd like to add? We're going to start contemplating this.
No, I appreciate your time. I really do. I know it's late in the day, and
That's what we're here for.
I wish I was here first, not last.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can discuss this a little bit before I have to open up for the public, right, Brandy?
Yeah, I mean, you can talk amongst yourselves at any point you want to.
So, I mean, realistically, there's a obvious discrepancy between what's considered a sign in a proprietor's eyes versus what is in the city's eyes or county's eyes in this place. Brick is not an advertisement. We all can, I think, come to that assumption, so.
But when you make a monument sign, I see their point of.
I get it. It's blending two different ones, so.
So all you're really asking him to do is push it down about 4 foot.
If I may, I would like to get back to part of the staff report, that second paragraph, where it talks about the size of the oval panel that at the top is 56 square feet. The two panel signs, for the car wash and the quick lube are 16 feet each, square feet each, so that's 32 square feet total for those two. And then the electronic message center is approximately 35 square feet. So just those three elements alone, without the space between the oval and below it or any of the masonry, without any of that, you're still at 123 square feet, which is still above the 100 square feet that's required by the code. So it's still already larger than that,
Well, that's
just
where-
for those elements alone.
That's where my whole thing is proportionally, could the whole thing be shrunk to get to a number that we all like, I guess is the question. Maybe not the 100, but the 140, the multi-tenant would go to. So that's just something to think about for a moment. I'm going to get through one portion. With that, the public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or have questions about this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? The public portion is now closed, so we got that out of the way. So let's continue this discussion. So staff's recommendation is a compromise, which is something that I try and work towards on a lot of these things. If we consider it, quote unquote, a multi-tenant, that gives them the height they need, but we still have a pretty good discrepancy between the 207 and 140 square feet. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is anyone else, that's why everyone else sees it, right? He wants
Correct.
207, staff is saying 140 is acceptable. That's what staff has recommended. What would you guys say about 160? Because we can name, Brandy, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, we can say we approve it up to 160 square feet and 25 foot in height or 22 foot in height or whatever, correct?
Yes.
So if there was a compromise someone wanted to propose as an option on this, that could be,
Now, the petitioner could say, I don't want that, I would rather you just turn it down, but you.
and we can give him that option as well too. What I'm trying to figure out is with this group is there a number in everyone's mind that we can go back and tell Mr. Tarani and say, if this is what you would, this is what we're willing to accept, or you can table it and ask for another one next month and see what we want to do more.
I don't think it's gonna get a better mix than all of you.
Correct, yeah, all 7 are here, so, and that's where I'm open to suggestions on what a number is that people would find agreeable. It might be the 207 if you want to vote on that too. I don't have a problem with taking a petition on, or a proposal on that, but I think there's a middle ground someplace, but I don't want to name that number. I want somebody else to do that for me.
Ryan, this is Christine. Can you pull up that picture again with Roseland Animal Clinic sign? I believe that was like 25 feet. And then I don't know if you know, that I know that's a relatively new building. Were they subject to these requirements when they put up their sign?
The sign ordinance is very, very young. It's been around for about less than a year.
Okay, so.
And, the animal clinic sign is 20 feet up. The
And that
the
was,
Culver's is 24 feet up, and the Phantom Fireworks is 31 feet up.
yeah, the animal clinic was actually, used to be LaSalle Bristol or LaSalle National Bank, so that's all been existing for probably 15, 20 years. They
So
renovated
you don't
that.
think that's a new sign?
No, that's the existing
Okay.
sign, because that's where I banked, so I kind of went there every day.
Yeah, you remember.
We're going by county ordinance. What's the city ordinance on signs like this?
The county ordinance is modeled off from the city ordinance. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but we based it very tightly on what the city standard was. So,
They got Drive and Shine that they just built on the south end.
right.
Is it, they got a sign this size down there?
But the character of that area is a lot different, so their sign is a lot lower than the character of this area, which is why they're proposing the 22, which is why staff, though, is trying to come up with a compromise, is the new, the revised ways, we really don't want, 30-foot style signs anymore. We really want lower.
Better looking sign.
You know,
Yes.
So, go ahead.
From staff's perspective, yes, you have to take the area into consideration, which is why we might concur that a sign that is larger than what the ordinance would allow is warranted. However, why pass a new sign ordinance?
Not even use it.
And say, well, it doesn't apply here, because the goal is to eventually bring the signs into compliance.
Amortization.
So can we ask him a question? Can I ask him a question?
You can still ask him.
Mr. Tarani?
Mr. Trump, or Mr. Stoffer.
Can one of you guys answer me this question? Would you be opposed to maybe tapering the masonry to, instead of having it in a rectangle?
It'd have to be 75%
Or
of the
do
width.
some sort of a pyramid?
Yeah, so it could, I think I know where DJ's going with this, and it would have to be, what is it, less than 75% of the base to not count toward the area? Sean and Ryan are much more they're better experts than I, since they were here when the new sign regs were being written.
Yeah, in order for this to count as a monument-style sign, the base that's masonry would have to be at least 75% of the width of the sign above it. So if it were smaller than 75% of that width, then it would no longer count as a monument sign, and then it would need to be set back more.
What's more?
If I remember right, I'll have to look. but-
25 feet.
Yeah, thank you.
25 feet more back?
No,
25
25 from the right-of-way line as opposed to 10 feet from the right-of-way line.
Oh, so it'd have to be back 15 feet.
15 more feet,
Yeah.
So that's not enough.
Not necessarily.
Not
You'd still
really.
have to count the square footage of the more narrow, I think.
Or getting into a little bit of uncharted territory where we hadn't quite added up all the permutations possible with that, I guess, so.
I don't think there's a way to do it. I'm ready.
I'm open for a.
So an option that we have, if you prefer us to have a pole sign, is to come back for a different variance, instead of 25-foot back, to have something less, because it's practical difficulty. For sure, we meet the guidelines of the variance request, because it would be practical difficulty for us to put it 25-foot back, because if you look at our site plan, it's just, we don't have enough depth in this property to be able to set a sign 25-foot back. It would basically almost have to sit next to our building, which I suppose we can do that. It just would look kind of ugly. And so I really don't like pole signs, but because I feel like we need to be visible. If we reduce the height of it too much, and I'm not trying to be uncooperative, I just know from experience what traveling at 55 miles an hour on this road is going to do. They're going to be looking at their phones. They're going to be going straight. They're going to be looking at big things, not small things. So we're going to drown in all this. And if you want to give us a chance to succeed and be visible, I feel like if we lower the sign dramatically, I'm not saying if you tell me reduce the height of it by a foot or two, it's probably not that much. I don't know if that would get us to the square footage that you want to see, but reducing it by like 6 feet, that's pretty dramatic. That would make us the shallowest sign in all the pictures that you see on this picture right here. You look at 31, 20, 24. McDonald has got to be well more than 24, and so is the Hampton Inn.
Sir, I think it's less about the height and more about the overall square footage of the sign.
Square footage.
Something for everyone.
Okay, so can we put the picture of the sign back up, please, so that we can see how we can change it?
Under the rules of the board, if the petition is denied, you'd have to wait another 6 months to come back for anything to do with this property.
Right.
If the petition would to be withdrawn, then you could come back within 3 months with the different proposal, if that were necessary.
But we could technically table it till next month and they could have other renderings, correct?
Say that again.
Technically, we could table it till next month and they could come back with other renderings.
With a revised petition.
With a revised petition, correct?
What you guys are proposing are radical enough that need to be re-advertised, I think. If you were gonna say that they wanted to change it to a, what's the other
A
kind of
freestanding sign?
A freestanding sign that would have to get a variance, that would be a 15-foot
That would have
setback
to be
variance
redone.
as opposed to these variances.
The
It
only
would
thing
have
that
to
would-
all be re-advertised.
Yeah, the only thing would not have to be redone is any changes, reductions of the request on this particular petition, we could table for next month. But if they were gonna go to a poll or they were gonna do something way different, then we'd have to re-advertise it, so. I get where
Would you
you're coming
mind, may I ask if you could put the sign back up and tell me what I would need to do to that sign to make it so that you would pass it? then I can tell you if that makes us feel comfortable and safe enough that we could still proceed with this variance request. And then I'll just share at the end of your suggestions.
So currently,
if-
Mr. Tarani, the proposal is, who's got a calculator? So the proposed 207 square feet. Could it proportionally be reduced 30% and still be acceptable?
What's 30%?
207 times 0.7. So anybody got it?
So that would be 140 foot?
So you need to,
Just times 0.7.
145 feet.
So would a 30% reduction in the requested size, proportionally, you shrink it all down the same, almost get you to the staff recommendation of 140?
I would be willing to reduce the size of the masonry width of it as much as you need me to, even though I don't think it would be proportionally attractive. But if the masonry is reduced in width, because that doesn't even, because we're really only asking for 123 square foot of sign.
Which is still 20 foot even but what the ordinance allows,
Yes.
so.
Yes, but we really are a multi-tenant. I know the ordinance says three facilities, but we have two completely unrelated operations. There's no relationship between the Quick Loop. They have their own separate employees. They have their own separate everything, their own separate menu, their own separate everything. It's no different than a strip mall. But I understand that your current guidelines say you have to have 3 businesses, but we really do have 2 businesses, and so. I think that 140 should be the absolute minimum to make it even. But even at a 140, so what do I have to do to the base? I mean, you suggested 160 as an option. Would that be on the table? I mean, how much can I reduce the width of this masonry and still meet the guidelines of the? Did you say 75%?
I don't know, we're getting into calculations that we really probably ought to table and then let staff work with you to figure out what that is and try and work out an equitable situation. Because for us to try and do this on the fly is not gonna be advantageous for you or us. So I guess I'm making a motion to table this till next month with the petitioner to work with staff to get an equitable, agreeable situation where they're somewhat satisfied with what we can do and what we're somewhat satisfied. And if you can't, then we'll petition, then we'll we'll go through it again and then we'll let it fly as it goes. But you're correct. We put an ordinance in place that we try and adhere to, but there's also some limitations of that we could allow them. But I don't want to we could be here another 2 hours trying to figure out what size it could be. So I'd rather not do that. I'd rather let staff work with them.
or we just split the difference. Right now, we're at 67 square feet difference. So,
I second your motion. This is Christine.
okay,
Never mind.
Thanks, Christine.
Well, you can say nay.
Sorry, DJ.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling till next
Sorry,
month?
you gotta do a roll call for this one.
Dang it, Christine. All right.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzema,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
yes.
Mr. Tavernier,
Yes.
Ms. Deutscher,
Yes.
Mr. Veltman.
Yes. So, Mr. Tarani, Mr. Stauffer, I think there's an equitable movement that we can make each way on this to get you close. Obviously, staff has already made some major movement off the 100 square feet that we currently allow through the ordinance. The multi-tenant could be made a case for in my mind, but I can't speak for the entire board. But you're going to have to come off your 207 to get this board to do anything for you. I can tell you that right now.
What number are we targeting to work on to see if that's doable?
You already tabled it. You can't talk anymore.
Unfortunately, since we tabled, I can't talk about it anymore. So that'd be something to talk to staff about, and they'll be able to have a good idea for you on that.
Can I ask a question of them?
Nope, it's been tabled. Sorry, Bob.
It's done for today.
We can't discuss it once it's been tabled. I'm sorry.
And
Gentlemen.
Christine, if you were to sign off, then they could finish the meeting with no roll call votes.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Appreciate the input. We do want to obviously get you working in, the county. We just want to find an equitable solution for everyone. So thank you. And Christine, thank you very much.
You want me to leave? Bye, guys.
I didn't know you had to.
You don't have to.
You could.
I'm gonna.
Abby hasn't given her update yet.
Can I now bring up a question that I can ask everybody here?
Oh, everybody here?
Yeah.
As long as it's not about petition, yes.
If you want to ask a question about the petition that was tabled, the answer is no.
No.
If you want to ask a question about other things, yes. Sorry.
All right.
Can I meet you afterwards
We
and
can-
ask
we
you
can-
this? I think what I'm gonna ask is important, that you understand this about what I'm gonna say. Can I ask you, just you, Abby?
I don't think that's a good idea.
Not at this point, unfortunately. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you, gentlemen. We will
What'd you say?
be speaking to you again next month. You'll be second on the agenda since the other one was tabled as well too, so at least you're not last.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine has graciously signed off so
All
that
right.
you do not have to do roll call votes for the remaining items.
In your possession, you have a finding of the facts from the June 9th, 2021 ABZA meeting. Those are technically not correct, but the ones that I signed are correct. That's, yours say Tuesday. The one I signed said Wednesday, so that was corrected. I'll make a motion, or I'll accept a motion to approve the finding of
I'll
facts.
make that motion to accept the findings of the facts based on the corrected copies.
Great, thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We also have a
The minute.
approval of the minutes of the June 9th, 2021 meetings, thankfully taken over by Mr. Schaefer. Appreciate you taking that on my absence. I'll entertain a motion to accept.
That was entertaining.
Second?
You gotta make a motion first.
Oh, I thought he made a motion.
I'll make
Oh.
a motion to accept.
Oh, second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Brandy, if the board members have questions about the petitions after they're filed, what would be
That was-
the
some of
appropriate
those were
way?
not the ones
Would
I
they
thought
be
we'd
able
have
to